Hello everyone, my name is Judith and I'm your presenter for today's webinar, Reasonable Adjustments, How to Get Them Right. This webinar is an overview of reasonable adjustments and will explore some of the key factors employers must consider. If you want in-depth training in this area, Acas provides a full-day training event, Making a Reasonable Adjustments. This training will explore the benefits of reasonable adjustments and will provide you with an understanding of the law, scenarios where they may apply, and practical guidance for managing them. So before we get started, just a little bit about who Acas are and what we do. So we provide employees and employers with free impartial advice on workplace rights, rules, and good practice. We also offer training, and specifically, if you are looking for training to help create a more inclusive workplace, then we have courses available to book now. We help resolve disputes, and our online advice is updated regularly, where you can find the latest information on sickness absence at work and other workplace advice for employers and employees. Our website has a number of free template letters, forms and policies for employers, HR managers and employees, which are free to download and use. So now let's have a look at what our webinar will focus on today. So you will gain an understanding of what reasonable adjustments are, how to implement reasonable adjustments, including examples. We will discuss practical strategies to build an inclusive workplace. And finally, we'll look at further support available. So in this section, we'll explore what a reasonable adjustment is. We will outline employers' legal obligations and offer examples demonstrating how reasonable adjustments can effectively support employees. So what is a reasonable adjustment? A reasonable adjustment is a change or adaptation made in the workplace to support the needs of an employee with a disability. Adjustments can vary depending on the individual's needs, and they may include making physical adjustments to the workplace, for example, adding contrasting strips to glass doors for employees with low vision, changing working arrangements. This could be adjusting start and finish times, allowing more breaks, or allowing the employee to work from home, providing equipment, services or support, such as an adapted keyboard for someone with arthritis, or having certain tasks be demonstrated by a mentor if verbal instructions are harder to process. Adjusting a role or duties, for example, reducing phone calls for somebody, may be an effective, reasonable adjustment for mental health. These are just a few simple, low-cost examples of reasonable adjustments that can be made. The key is to ensure that the adjustment is tailored to the individual's needs and circumstances. We've already discussed a few potential reasonable adjustments and where they may be suitable. So on this slide, we've provided a few more examples. The list is not exhaustive and is intended as a starting point to help you consider the different types of reasonable adjustments that are available. These examples cover visible and non-visible disabilities, and I'll expand on each one. However, I will explain a few of them. For example, adjusting or removing tests. Tests for suitability for promotion or job interviews should be designed to not unreasonably disadvantage disabled people. Removing them from the process may be a reasonable adjustment. Another example is modifying procedures. Some disabled people might need time off for reasons related to their disability. For example, if they're too ill to work or go into medical appointments. A reasonable adjustment may be to modify trigger points, for example, increasing the number of absences that would trigger a review. Another example of a reasonable adjustment could be recording disability absence separately to the other sickness absence. This is sometimes known as disability leave or disability-related sickness absence. Vicky will send you a link to our Acas website that has useful advice on disability-related absence. So a person with a disability that needs a reasonable adjustment should communicate with their manager or employer or their potential employer if they're applying for a job. This allows the individual to explain their circumstances, enabling the employer to understand how best to provide support. Together, they should collaboratively discuss and agree on suitable adjustments. There are several ways someone may request a reasonable adjustment from their employer, and on this slide we will discuss the potential ways this may be done and how best to handle the request. So an employee may notify their manager or employee directly in an informal discussion or meeting. If this is the case, actively listen and pay close attention to the employee's needs and concerns. Take notes on specific adjustments requested and how these will best support the employee. Then schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss potential solutions and next steps. A written request should be handled similarly. Acknowledge receipt by responding promptly to confirm you have received the request, and carefully consider details and arrange a meeting to discuss the request in more detail. An individual may prefer to approach the HR department to discuss adjustments and seek their assistance in communicating with the relevant managers. If this happens, work closely with HR to understand the request and identify a reasonable adjustment. Coordinate with the relevant departments and collaborate to find a solution. A medical report may be submitted or used. Promptly acknowledge the medical report and thank the employee for sharing. Ensure all medical information is kept confidential. If necessary, consult with experts to gain insights into the best way to accommodate the employee's needs and tailor adjustments. Organisations may have internal systems or platforms to submit requests or concerns related to workplace adjustments. Respond promptly to requests through the internal systems, monitor the status of the request, ensure timely implementation. Ensure you provide regular updates to the employee and seek feedback on the effectiveness of the adjustment. So regardless of how an employee is notified, it is good practice when handling a request to listen to the person and try to understand how their disability affects them. Consider the person's specific situation and do not make assumptions. This may involve different adjustments for individuals with the same disability. Everyone's experience is different. Include the employee in the decision-making process. This will ensure adjustments meet their needs. The employer can consider getting medical advice if they need help to decide what adjustments are needed. For example, the employer could agree with a disabled member of a staff to get an occupational health assessment or ask the person's doctor. We have included a template letter to an employer's doctor in your handout. If reasonable adjustments is agreed, act promptly and implement it without delay. Maintain open and clear communication with the employee to ensure they feel supported. If implementation is delayed, try to come up with a short-term solution. Review and record. This should be done regularly, for example, every 6 months, or if something changes. Consider using a reasonable adjustment passport. This is a document created by an individual and their employer and ensures that each reasonable adjustment is correct, practical, and up to date. It also means that an individual can take information about their reasonable adjustment with them if they change job or line manager. Vicky will send a link to you now if you want to know more about reasonable adjustment passports. So an employer does not have to make reasonable adjustments that are unreasonable. However, they should still find other ways to support the individual. And on the next slide, we will look at what reasonable means. Remember, this webinar is a brief overview of the key points when implementing reasonable adjustments. The process can be complex and difficult to navigate. Consider the full-day training event for more in-depth breakdown of making reasonable adjustments tailored to an individual's needs. So what is reasonable depends on each situation. The employer must consider the adjustment carefully and should think about the following questions. So will the adjustment remove or reduce the disadvantage? So will it be effective? It should address the specific challenges that the employee faces due to their disability and enable them to perform their role. Is the adjustment practical and feasible for the employer to implement? This means considering factors such as resources, impact on business operations. And cost, is it affordable? The employer is responsible for paying for any reasonable adjustments. Many adjustments are simple and cost effective. However, there can be instances when an employer might not be able to afford an adjustment. Access to work is a government scheme that can help people with a disability to get or stay in work. Someone may be eligible for a grant to help pay for practical support. This is not a substitute for the employer's legal obligation to make reasonable adjustments or pay for them, but it is a useful resource to be aware of. You can find a link to Access to Work in the handout we've provided. And finally, is there a possibility the adjustment could harm the health and safety of others? For example, someone may request specialist electrical equipment. The equipment may increase the risk of an electrical hazard or obstruct walkways. To address these concerns, an employer should have an electrical safety assessment conducted and review the workplace floor plan to see if there is a suitable place for the equipment to be set up before refusing the request, and also consider alternatives. A reasonable adjustment should balance the needs of the employee with the practical capabilities of the employer. So under the Equality Act 2010, employers have a legal obligation to make reasonable adjustments for employees with disabilities. Failure to meet these obligations can lead to legal consequences, such as employment tribunal claims for disability discrimination and failure to make reasonable adjustments. So who is protected? The law states that employers must make reasonable adjustments for job applicants, employees, workers and contractors, or self-employed people hired to personally do the work. Employers must make reasonable adjustments when they know or could reasonably be expected to know someone is disabled. This is also the case if the individual hasn't disclosed they are disabled. If the employer could reasonably be expected to know about the disability and about the substantial disadvantage the employee is placed under, then the duty to make reasonable adjustments will still arise. So I'm going to hand you back over to Vicky, who's going to take you through a case study. Vicky, over to you.
Thanks, Judith. So let's look at Al. So Al has been on long-term sick leave for the past 3 months due to chronic back pain. Al's absence has been challenging for both her and her team, and she's ready to return to work. Al's employer recognises the importance of sustainable accommodations to ensure her return to work is smooth and to reduce the risk of further absence. During Al's return to work meeting, Al's manager conducts a confidential discussion to understand what support is needed and if reasonable adjustments can be implemented for her return. Al and her manager agree an adjusted workload to allow regular breaks and task pacing. They also set a date for an ergonomic assessment to help Al manage her back pain. They also agree regular checks and to review the adjustment's effectiveness. This case study illustrates the importance of proactive measures and collaborative efforts in supporting employees returning to work after long-term absence. The key points here are good communication to understand needs, implementing reasonable adjustments promptly, and providing continuous check-ins and reviews. So I'll now hand you back over to Judith to continue with the presentation.
Thanks, Vicky. So in this section, we'll take a closer look at what an employer should consider when implementing reasonable adjustments, and we will discuss some of the challenges you may face and how to overcome them. So some of the key points for you to consider when implementing reasonable adjustments are tailoring adjustments to individual needs. To do this, engage in open and confidential discussions with the individual to find out what support they need. Ensure a consistent approach by all. To achieve this, develop clear policies on reasonable adjustments that comply with legal obligations and provide guidance. We will discuss what to include in a policy later in the presentation. In addition to discussing workplace adjustments with the individual, input from specialists can help you understand the effects of their disability and how to accommodate them. Contact occupational health services and medical professionals. So please use our advice page on occupational health assessments that Vicky is sending to you now for more information in this area. Smaller organisations might not have occupational health policy or a scheme. In this case, the employer should take the advice of both the employee and the employee's doctor. Set realistic timeframes and goals, and calls to the Acas helpline mention that where reasonable adjustments were agreed, it took a long time to implement and employees were having to chase up their completion. This can be stressful and cause a breakdown in working relationships. If a reasonable adjustment is going to take a considerable amount of time to implement, find suitable alternatives to support the individual and provide clear and ongoing updates during this process. And finally, regularly review adjustments, making improvements based on feedback if needed. Implementing reasonable adjustments successfully depends on understanding and empathy. Training and awareness of initiatives will contribute to a more supportive and empathetic workplace culture. reduce stigma and dispel misconceptions associated with disabilities, and this should encourage an inclusive environment where all employees feel valued and respected. Detailed training on implementing reasonable adjustments for managers and supervisors will provide the skills needed to confidentially address any challenges that may arise, and managers will also gain knowledge of legal obligations, reducing the risk of discrimination claims and fostering a fair workplace. Regular newsletters or emails highlighting success stories and best practices will build awareness and better understanding. Employers could create an internal portal with resources and information on reasonable adjustments. This could encourage employees to disclose that they have a disability. Employees who feel like their disability does not require a reasonable adjustment, or who are fearful of what might happen if they do, often end up disclosing at the tipping point, preventing early intervention. Creating an inclusive workplace where reasonable adjustments are understood will encourage early disclosure, ensuring adjustments can be implemented at the right time. This can contribute to higher employee satisfaction, engagement, and retention. Acas provide e-learning on disability discrimination, and the module is self-paced and is a mix of theory and case studies, and you can access this learning through the link that Vicky is sending you now. So embed reasonable adjustments within company policy and grievance processes to ensure a consistent approach by all staff. An inconsistent approach by managers can be problematic. Instances where an employee has a change of management with a new manager who has a more negative approach to reasonable adjustments could lead to a dispute. Creating a standalone, clear, comprehensive and accessible reasonable adjustment policy can support all employees. A policy could open with a policy statement committing the organisation to equality, diversity and inclusion, recognising the legal obligations under the Equality Act of 2010. Explain the objectives of the policy and outline the benefits of reasonable adjustments for both the organisation and employees. Define who the policy applies to, specify that it covers all types of disability, including physical, mental, sensory and neurodiversity. Provide a non-exhaustive list of potential adjustments. Outline the steps employees should take to request adjustments, for example, who to contact and information required, such as the nature of the disability and type of adjustment needed. Describe how a request will be assessed and if there will be involvement from occupational health professionals. Outline what the considerations are when agreeing to the reasonable adjustment, for example, cost and practicality, and also outline the process of implementing approved adjustments. Various stakeholders may be involved in the process, such as HR departments, managers, and health professionals. Make sure everyone's roles and responsibilities are clear, including the employee's responsibility to make the request and provide any necessary information. Some other considerations to include are that information related to disability and adjustments will be kept confidential and comply with GDPR. Provision of a clear process for employees to appeal decisions or raise a complaint about the handling of their adjustment request, and how often the policy will be reviewed. So we're now going to take a look at overcoming challenges and barriers when implementing reasonable adjustments. Employers may face insufficient resources or budget to implement adjustments, to try to prioritise adjustments based on necessity and ones that will have the biggest impact on supporting the individual. Seek external funding or grants dedicated to support workplace adjustments for disabilities. Collaborate with the government programmes or non-profits that offer financial assistance or resources. If none of these are possible, find alternative adjustments that are low to no cost that will also support the individual. We have signposted further support in your handout that covers some of these options. So another barrier can be resistance to change or lack of support from management or senior leaders, and engage senior leadership by highlighting the benefits of an inclusive workplace, such as increased productivity, morale, and talent retention, as well as the legal obligations you must abide by, providing success stories to illustrate positive outcomes, offer training to managers to foster supportive attitudes and build confidence when implementing reasonable adjustments. Workshops and e-learning modules can increase understanding and empathy for all staff, but are particularly important for managers. so employers may experience difficulty in identifying the appropriate reasonable adjustment. As mentioned previously, work together with your employee to agree reasonable adjustments. They are best placed to know what will support them. Their experience of the disability will be different to someone else's experience with the same disability. Take mental health, for example. Everyone's experience of mental health is different, and mental health can fluctuate over time. This means that identifying, agreeing, and monitoring reasonable adjustments can take time. It also relies on open, honest dialogue with support from occupational health professionals or disability experts giving tailored advice. You should be able to find a solution. You can also utilise free online guidance through the Acas website and the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Links to both of those are in your handout. Communication barriers between employees and managers can provide a challenge. Provide training on effective communication strategies and use anonymous feedback mechanisms to inform and address concerns. Create multiple channels, meetings, emails, or suggestion boxes for employees to express their needs. This will all go towards fostering open and inclusive communication between employees and managers. In the full day Making Reasonable Adjustments training event, we provide a whole section on how to discuss reasonable adjustments in the workplace with an individual. Some other things to consider when challenges arise are to encourage continuous feedback from employees to develop target solutions. We are now going to discuss a case study, and I'll hand you back to Vicky to go through this with you. Vicky, over to you.
Thanks, Judith. So let's look at JJ. So JJ is a new data analyst at Techie Solutions Limited. JJ is neurodivergent. They have not had a formal diagnosis, but their doctor has referred them for an autism assessment. JJ finds the lack of structure in this role difficult, and generic instructions for work projects has meant incomplete tasks. Despite being highly skilled, the high-pressure environment has had an impact on JJ's mental health. They have become withdrawn and their productivity has decreased. JJ's manager Tom has recognised a change in JJ's behaviour and has concerns. Tom initiates an informal discussion to understand JJ's needs better and to see if support can be provided. In this discussion, JJ discloses that they are autistic and are awaiting a formal diagnosis. JJ expresses difficulties in concentration and coping with stress when there is little to no routine. They also struggle to follow generic instructions. So what should Tom do next? On this slide, we will look at what good practice might look like through the steps Tom takes. So Tom holds a separate confidential meeting with JJ to discuss the challenges they are facing and identify potential adjustments. This is scheduled with enough time to allow JJ to consider what support is needed and conducted promptly to reduce the risk of any further negative impact. In the meeting, Tom encourages JJ to take the lead and suggest what adjustments they think could be beneficial. Tom is patient and uses active listening skills. JJ asks for instructions to be specific and in writing and for a structured work environment, which includes the implementation of project management tools to provide clear task lists and deadlines. They ask for increased breaks to manage stress. This is a short-term measure which will be reviewed at Tom and JJ's next meeting. The adjustments are agreed, and during the implementation, Tom regularly checks in with JJ. They agree set times and dates for when this will be done to allow JJ structure. This regular check-in provides an open feedback loop, allowing JJ to communicate any ongoing or new challenges. This communication continues after adjustments have been put in place to ensure that they are still effective. The implementation of these adjustments has led to a significant improvement to JJ's mental health and work performance. This case study demonstrates the positive impact of personalised adjustments and the importance of a proactive approach. So the key takeaways from this case study are: understanding and addressing individual needs is crucial for adjustments to be effective. A proactive approach and early intervention can prevent things from escalating. And don't focus on disability or diagnosis. Aim to find solutions to support the individual. And provide ongoing support beyond implementing the adjustments. This can be via regular reviews and check-ins. I hope this case study has been useful to demonstrate good practice measures for implementing a reasonable adjustment. I'll now hand you back over to Judith.
Thanks, Vicky. So before we go move on to our next section, I'm going to take some time to go through a couple of questions about reasonable adjustments that we are frequently asked at Acas. Remember, if you have any questions today, we have advisors available on the webinar to answer them. Please just pop them in the chat box. So our first question is, I'm a small business owner with a very little resource. I want to support my staff. I have an employee who has anxiety and has requested to work from home as a reasonable adjustment. If we agree, how long do we have to make the reasonable adjustment? I am concerned it will take some time. And so the answer to this question is, reasonable adjustments should be implemented as quickly as it is practical. Undue delay in making adjustments might be considered discriminatory. However, timeframes can vary depending on the nature of the changes. If you agree, you should keep your employee up to date with the progress of the adjustment being made and try to find a short-term solution, for example, frequent breaks or reduced hours, till the reasonable adjustment can be implemented. Primarily, as soon as you learn or may reasonably be expected to anticipate the necessary adjustment, you should take action to implement it. And our next question is, we have someone coming back to work after long-term sickness and they have requested returning on a reduced hours as a reasonable adjustment. If we agree, does this mean the new work arrangement is permanent? And the answer to this one is that reasonable adjustments should be reviewed and updated over time. This is to ensure that they remain relevant and effective in meeting the individual's needs. In this example, the employer could agree to the adjustment on a temporary basis and conduct a review on an agreed date to see if something more long-term needs to be put in place or if the adjustment is no longer needed. So I'd like to take some time to thank our advisors who are answering your questions live on the webinar now. Thank you, advisors. So we're now going to take a look at creating an inclusive workplace and looking beyond disability. So workplaces should advocate for workplace environments that are accessible for all individuals and recognise that tailored support can benefit everyone. There are several benefits to doing so. It will ensure that the workplace is welcoming and all employees and create inclusivity. An accessible workplace can improve productivity and morale, enabling all employees to work more effectively and comfortably. It will support the organisation in staying ahead of legal requirements and avoiding potential discrimination claims. A focus on accessibility can drive innovation, leading to the development of new tools and processes that benefit everyone. Organisations known for their commitment to accessibility can attract top talent and enhance their reputation with customers and partners. Supporting all employees with accessible practices can lead to higher job satisfaction and retention rates. Promoting accessibility creates a more productive and positive work environment, benefiting the organisation and its employees. So promoting accessibility involves creating an environment where everyone can thrive. But how can this be done? Implement universal design principles in the workplace to ensure spaces, tools and systems are usable by all people, regardless of their abilities. Examples include adjustable desks, wide doorways and natural lights. Provide accessible technology and software such as screen readers and ensure that all digital content, including websites and intranets, meet accessibility standards and provide information in plain English to ensure it is understood by all. Conduct regular training sessions on accessibility. This will contribute to a greater understanding and an inclusive working environment. Ensure that senior leaders actively support and promote accessibility initiatives and highlight and celebrate ongoing efforts to create a culture of accessibility and inclusion. So that concludes the presentation, but please do stay until the end where we'll talk you through how to save all the important information from today's sessions. To summarise what we've discussed today, we've talked about reasonable adjustments, what they are and what they are a legal requirement, how to implement reasonable adjustments. We discussed how to overcome challenges and creating an inclusive environment. So let's now look at what training Acas can provide around this. So our website runs webinars run monthly, and you can get more information via the link in your handout. And we hope you will join us again, but we also have training options that will equip you with more in-depth knowledge. Our digital courses are delivered to you via Zoom, and will give you the opportunity to interact with our knowledgeable trainers to explore some of the challenges you may be facing. We also have face-to-face training available, which is available to book. To check out the courses we have available, Vicky will send a link in the chat function for you now. We have lots of training products to choose from, for example, having difficult conversations and how to handle them, mental health in the workplace, and if you want to understand more, we have in-depth training on reasonable adjustments. So Acas can work alongside you to provide tailored support for your workplace, and if this is something you may be interested in, please call us on 0300 123 1150. Our wide range of training can be delivered in person as well as on a digital platform, so we have lots of options that can support you with workplace problems and keep you up to date with good practice, whatever method you prefer. We hope that helps, and we really hope to see you on one of our courses soon.